Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. If you all listened to last episode, you heard that I was bringing on a special guest onto the podcast today. So, welcome, Jane. Excited to have you here. So, to get us a little bit, to get us started and to help everyone get familiar with, well, you know me, but to help you get familiar with Jane, we're going to ask her a couple questions today. So my first question is, describe a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what brought you here, all that kind of stuff.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Jane Barry. I am originally from just outside of Chicago, and I came here in 2012. So I've been living here for the last 12 years. I originally came for college and then just loved the East Coast so much I couldn't leave.
Right? So. Awesome. So at the Office of Healthy Homes, you are our lead program manager. Can you give a little insight or a little day-to-day of what your job entails, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Being the lead program manager is awesome. The title really would lead you to believe that I am in charge of the lead program, which is true, but I'm not solely in charge of the lead program. I have, a hand in a bit of our first-time homebuyer program, our housing rehab program, and a few other things to do with our CDBG and home grants from the federal government. So a bit of my day-to-day typically looks a lot like being the ringleader. I feel that I'm often sort of communicating information to our contractors or to other members of our team. I'm typically in charge of all of our reporting as well as invoicing, so I make sure that everybody gets paid.
We do love that.
But it changes day to day based on what the grant needs and what reporting things the federal government's asking for.
Wow, it seems like you definitely have your hands full with everything that you do here in the office. So now that you've discussed what your title and what your job entails, how long have you been working at the Office of Healthy Homes?
I'm coming up on about 2 years now. So I started back in 2022, and it's been a great 2 years.
Love to hear it. What led you to, I guess, where you are now in this job?
When I sort of a history of my professional background, I started originally in electrical distribution, so I was working with a lot of contractors. That's also how I paid my way through school. When I first graduated school, I actually went more to the private sector, and I knew that I wanted to do community and economic development because that's what I majored in college, but the private sector just gave an opportunity to get a little taste of everything. So I was working for a software company that developed community development software, specifically around housing programs, which is how I met some of the amazing employees that work for the city of Quincy, and certainly fell in love with the team, and that's how I heard about the opportunity.
Now here you are, 2 years later.
I know, here I am.
In your day-to-day life at this job, describe a little bit about what your favorite aspects about it are, maybe something that you didn't expect when you were coming into this job that turns out you really have liked it.
The very best thing about this job is definitely the people. I love our staff. I think they're so great to work with. Everybody's super passionate about their work and about the goals that we have and about the programs that we're running, which is really exciting. I also really love all of the families where we get to work with. Each family really has their own story and brings something special to the Quincy community. So it's certainly one of the most special aspects of my job. In terms of something that is different from my previous jobs, I mentioned that I came from the private sector, and then now I'm moving to the public sector, and the pace is definitely different. The private sector moves a lot faster than the public sector, and At first, I think that was something that I maybe struggled with a little bit, was the difference between the public and private sector. But what I've realized and with knowledge over time, part of the reason that the public sector moves a little slower is because everything's done a lot more thoroughly. People are very passionate about what they're doing, so there's a backup of a backup, and we have to report all the things we do and all the money that's moving around. So it does move slower, but it moves slower with a purpose, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's lighten up. Let's learn some more facts. So tell me a fun fact about yourself.
I think a fun fact about myself, besides the fact that I'm from Chicago and a big Chicago sports fan, is, one of my favorite things that I like to share. TV show Glee is based off of the high school I went to, which is always kind of funny because you look at TV shows and you never think that,
right? Yeah.
Like that there might be some truth to that, but there is, especially the first season.
That is really cool. I have never seen Glee, but if any listeners have seen Glee, that's a really cool fun fact that Jane shared, and maybe that'll get you guys to start watching Glee. All right, so moving on to the next question. What is something, and I guess you touched on what you struggled with coming into this job and how you realized it was a slower pace. Adding on to that, what else have you learned while being on this job, or something that you didn't really expect?
I think one of the things that I wouldn't say that I didn't expect it, because it was I was certainly familiar with this process in my previous job, but the federal regulations, what we call regs, taking the time to go through them, knowing where to find things, knowing how to read them, it's a massive document. And so being able to work through that quickly to find answers and make sure that we're appropriately, efficiently allocating the money we're given by the federal government is definitely something that the time that it takes to go through it, I'm not sure I expected.
Yeah, for sure. So since I know we discussed on previous episodes that Joyce, the program assistant, she deals with all the intake of the applications, and after that kind of pushes them along to you. So what is something that you wish you could tell an individual applying about our programs or about the application? Or I guess what would you tell someone who's looking to apply to our program as well?
If you're looking to apply, I would say just do it. One of the things that's so special about our office is that we all come from different backgrounds, and it's really not just our office, but our entire department is a wealth of information. And even if we aren't the right program to help you, we can probably guide you to somebody who is. So at the very least, put in an application, give us a call, shoot us an email. We're always happy to help. In terms of applicants that have already decided to apply, I would say ask questions. We are, as I said, a wealth of information, and we know so many things about the program, and there's so much information that we try and give you all the things that you need. But if there's something that seems unclear or you have a question about something, just ask. Sometimes we always do our best to talk about the best things that our program provides, but sometimes people forget that there's like $1,500 tax rebate. I think it might be up to $3,000 now, which is a pretty cool benefit of going through our lead abatement program. Another cool thing is some of our documents online are a little bit dated. Other organizations have information that's a little bit older. So one of the things that newly happened this year is that our first-time homebuyer program, instead of providing $20,000 of assistance, we're now providing $40,000 of assistance. So I like to say just ask.
Yeah, and that goes for both individuals who are looking to apply and individuals who are in the process of you go through the application, then there's the underwriting period, and then there's the inspection and so on. As always, at the end of every podcast, I mention we're always available through email, through phone calls, through the website, even our Facebook. So definitely don't hesitate to ask a question, because we're always here. We're always looking to help anybody who has questions. So my last question for you today is, what are some misconceptions that people could have about maybe our programs, application process, or anything along the lines of that?
Great question, and I have two answers to it. First would be that I think typically when individuals and families think about assistance, they really think about being reserved for people who are low income. And while that is true, and that is a term that is sometimes used, I would say that our programs are really geared towards low to moderate income. Are currently, for a individual, if you make less than $82,000 a year, I know there's an exact number, but it's around that, you would qualify for any of our programs. So it's certainly, I think that's a fairly high salary, actually.
For sure.
So I feel like that's a common misconception.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure if you've watched some of our segments on QATV, or if you've heard us discuss some of the income limits, we like to say it's pretty generous. One person making $82,000, you mentioned they're not exactly low income, but they don't have the wealth to do some necessary repairs to their house. So it's definitely a tight line. So from our last segment, Jane, who you've been hearing on this podcast, myself, Sherry, who you will hear next, and the Community Development Director, Sean, we all traveled to Washington for the NCDA Winter Legislative Conference, which is super exciting. It was one of my first conferences, although I know Jane has been to many before. And so there we learned what other states are doing for community development, affordable housing, and how we're using the CDBG funds that each city gets. So do you want to talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. So through this conference is actually how I met some of the staff that works for the Community Development Department. So I've been going to these for years, and each conference is just holds so much information, and it's such a great opportunity for us to meet with other communities that are bringing in new information and best practices, and helps us and challenges us to step up our game, or really keep it on track, as I think we certainly have an impressive record here in Quincy. We actually just won an award for the radiology suite at the Manic Community Health Center, and we did it with our CDBG funds. So that was pretty exciting. I also think that at these national conferences, often our team members are the ones, especially these days, who are presenting, because I think we do show and display some of the best practices in the country. So
the Housing Programs Manager, Sherry, presented a session on environmental review, so it was really awesome to hear her talk about what Quincy has been doing and share it to all the other states and communities that were there to listen to her chat about it. We just were at the Quarry Lunar New Year event. It was really great to see everyone there. There was a great attendance that showed up. If you were there, I'm sure we said hi to you, or be sure to come to any of our other events that we are having as well. Also, we had the puppet show with Lee on February 22nd at 10 a.m. So that was great to see all the little kids there and learning about lead and why it's so important to have these talks with the children as well. So now it looks like we are at the end of our 5th episode, which is super exciting. Thanks for joining us today, Jane.
Had a great time. Thanks for having me.
And as always, subscribe to our email campaign, as well as follow our Facebook, and don't hesitate to call or email us. I will put both mine and Jane's information in the blurb. So yeah, well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, whatever your night, whenever you're listening to this. and have a good night. Bye.